Blog Talk Radio.
Carol the Coach. Sex, love, and relationships. We talk about it here.
Carol the Coach. Compassion with contemporary relevance.
I am a psychotherapist. I can be your personal life coach, and I can help you with your issues. There are no problems too small or too big. You can talk about anything.
Speaker, columnist, radio TV host, and commentator. Carol the Coach brings messages of wellness and empowerment within reach of everyday people every day.
Almost 5 years ago, I lost my soulmate in an accident. He was killed in a plane crash. Life just, for me, has seemed to stop.
There are groups all over the city. I teach one. It is a specific way to start thinking so that you shift how you see the world, which then shifts your energy, and then you feel better and you actually see things differently.
Carol the Coach. Always available, too, at carolthecoach.com.
Now, I've got Russell on the line.
I'm 47 years old. I'm a truck driver. I'm married. I have a wife in San Francisco.
Okay.
I haven't been home in 6 months. My thing is, I don't know if I have a sex addiction or what the problem is. Why do I want what I can't have? And as soon as I can have it, I don't want it anymore.
You're right on target when you say, I don't know if I have a sexual addiction. Well, guess what? Yes, you do. And you know what? That's my specialty, Russell. So you're at the right place. Continue.
I meet women online, and I'm in a different part of the country. I travel all 48 states, so I love sex.
I hear self-esteem issues. You never felt good enough, and you didn't feel like you were getting what you should have then, and you're reenacting that now. Do you want to change that about yourself?
You get what you need.
I got an interesting email.
Oh, yeah. You know, my intro doesn't want to stop. And I promised you I got a new intro, and I did. And I haven't had time to put it together yet. Hi, everybody. I am Carol Jurgensen-Sheets, and I am so happy to be with you today. I feel like we are moving into the last season of the year, and with that generally comes a lot of hustle and bustle. And so I would like for you, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, to really work on mindfulness so that you can stay present to things happen. If you're an addict, you're more likely to become aware of what you need to do in your life to stay in good recovery, to have gratitude for what is, and to have self-reflection time. That's what I know to be true. And if you are a partner, one of the things that we know is have to be able to sit in the distress and yet use their skills to know that they're going to be okay no matter what, right? No matter what. And so mindfulness is single-handedly the most important thing you can do. Now, today we have a riveting show. We have Kimberly Litton, who wrote a book called I Do It For Her, a memoir of recovery and redemption from sex, love, and substances. Kim has a wealth of knowledge, and so I cannot wait to talk to her about that. Because the truth of it is that no matter where any of our lives are going, we always have the capacity to change them. Always. Now, let me tell you a little bit about what I am changing. You've heard me say it before. I'm leaning into retirement. And last month, I chiseled down my schedule from 5 days, sometimes 6, to 3. I start an hour earlier at 9, and I quit an hour sooner. And then this week, I decided to make it official that I was no longer going to be doing APSATs, partner-sensitive organization that I am so closely attached to. I was no longer going to do individual supervision with my supervisees. I was only going to do groups. So I was still going to be available, but I wasn't going to be a primary supervisor, and I wasn't going to do individual. Huge step for me because I love that community. But the truth is, I love working with all of you. And whether you're a professional or you're a client, whether you're in group with me or whether you're in couples work, I love working with you. And the only way that I could take better care of myself was to begin to make scheduling changes. Now, I'm curious, what changes do you make in your life? What changes do you make in your life that create more simplicity? That sounds so simple, right? Simplicity, simple. But we can all make changes. I mean, I'm writing my 5th book on infidelity. And I could still be getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to work on that book. And I'm like, well, actually, the book's done, but I'm going through it for the 3rd time. I'm like, no, I am sleeping in till 7:30. Well, sometimes 7. But I'm making that choice because I do believe that although I'm high energy and I love to be awake, it is probably healthier for my body to get more rest, especially as I move into the last season of my life. So I'm just letting you know where I'm at. So here's what else transpired this week. I promise you we'll get to Kimberly in just a minute. Okay, I get on Blog Talk to put my platform up, to write about the show this week, and to get it all set up. And there was a message to me from Blog Talk. And they said, as of January 1st, we are no longer going to be Blog Talk. And you will have to, I couldn't believe this, you're going to have to download all your shows. And I have over 800 shows. Of course, I was the very first podcast in the world on sex addiction and partner betrayal. And they didn't tell me how to transfer them to another platform. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no, I've got a big transition to do. I either have to make the choice not to keep all my podcasts and let it go and know that most of you have heard them, or I need to figure out who I can pay to do that work, because I am not doing that work. So if you would, say a little prayer for me, and in that I will find the perfect person to transfer all of my podcasts, all 800 some, onto another platform that I will probably only have for another year, because if I retire fully, listen to me, when I retire fully, January of 2025, I won't be doing podcasts any longer. But I'm not ready to quit this. You know, it is one way to disseminate such great information out into the world about the newest, the greatest changes that we are making in this field. And although we have amazing podcasts, I mean, way better than mine out there right now, I still take pride in being the very first to do sex addiction and partner betrayal. You know, that didn't start out as a partner betrayal podcast. 1 year into it, I found out that 52% of my listening audience were partners trying to figure out what was going on with their spouse. And that's when I decided to change the trajectory of what I was doing. And that's what I feel like I'm doing today, because there's this thing called love addiction. There's this thing called sex and love addiction. And although it can happen to both sexes, we don't have as much information as we need to understand it, especially as it pertains to female sex addicts and female love addicts. And so I am interviewing a very brave woman who anguished, as I read her book, she anguished about, should I put this out here? And after much thought and much trepidation, she did. And it is an amazing book. It's called I Do It For Her, a memoir of recovery and redemption from sex, love, and substances. You know, most of us know that sex addicts have multiple addictions. Spending, gambling, eating, narcotics, alcohol. And when one gets better, the other gets worse. And so there's this game of whack-a-mole. And for many of you out there, you've had to go to treatment centers to really get grounded and supported in your addiction recovery, no matter what that was. And when I started this field, what I knew to be true is that we had to help staff in treatment centers understand about sex addiction, because they didn't understand anything about the addiction. And so when they helped somebody stop drugs and alcohol, unbeknownst to them, sex addiction went up. And now we're much smarter. And I always say, when you know better, you do better. And Kimberly Linton is an amazing force in this field that's put her life out there, her struggles, and as well as a lot of family pictures that really personalize her experience. I absolutely adored them. This is a memoir that you have to read. Whether you're a sex or love addict, whether you use substances, whether you're a professional, this is now somebody who is clinically astute. She is a licensed certified social worker, and she's one of us. She's a CSAT. She's a certified sex addict therapist. And so, Kimberly Linton, I just welcome you so much to the show for your bravery and your courage. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Carol. I tell you, I got teary-eyed when you were just saying that, so I really appreciate being here. And I'm doing well today. It's a beautiful day here in the South, so how are you?
I am doing well, too. I'm in Indianapolis, although I will be a snowbird in Naples, Florida, right after Christmas. And we've had our first snow. And so everything is white out there. It's really bright out there. And it, too, is a beautiful day, although the sun is not shining.
Okay, yeah, the beautiful white, I know. I miss that.
So would you tell us about your journey? How did it start, and all the trauma and drama that went along with it? I mean, she's not only experienced trauma, but she's had things that have happened to her that many of us in regular life have had. Burglaries, stealing $18 out of her little kid's purse. I mean, you know, those kind of things, they leave wounds that once healed make you stronger. But share with us anywhere you want to start.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. I had no idea it was trauma. Obviously, when I was being raised in my childhood, I thought it was completely normal, and this is just the way it was. And, you know, I really appreciate that you noticed the drama of it all, too, and that you kind of highlight that point, because for me, drama was something I experienced from early on, you know, and drama meant love to me. I thought that the more, dramatic things were and intense, that was love, that was intimacy, and that, just the more drama that was going on, the more important and the more alive you were, and so anyway, my journey began in a small Appalachian town, and honestly, our morals were good. I'm from a very good family, but a very sick family. A very generationally traumatic events had happened in my family. And for that reason, we never, in my whole Appalachian culture, therapy is still not a big deal there. It is still maybe one or two therapists in my hometown to this day. So, getting mental health help was just not part of it meant weakness. Of course, and obviously, as we know, back in the 80s, it certainly meant weakness. And in a hometown, it was you go to church for your and get your problems met there, or dealt with there through God. And so through that, no one addressed my mom's addiction until it was horrible and terrible, and it had caused so much damage with her and with us. Nobody, no couples counseling for my poor mom and dad. I mean, she was so lonely as I was growing up without her. I mean, she did not have a husband, and, and I hope that the reader gets through as well in this book of the avoidant spouse is just as abusive as the one who is causing the drama and causing the arguments and causing the fights. The avoidant person who was punishing with silence and punishing with just an absolute void of emotion and presence, that was just as abusive for my mother. And now I can have compassion about that. But, of course, when I was young and little, I just saw the outward expressions. So anyway, my journey was that, a lot of drama and trauma in my childhood, watching my parents argue and fight and my dad not be there. I think that from an early age, I thought, of course, that was love, and that the dance between an avoidant and an anxious attached person was love.
Well, in the book, obviously, there was a lot of fighting, and you were the middle child, right?
Yes.
And you're a little blonde, precious child, and, you take us through what it was like to live in the Appalachian culture, and yet so much of your journey was a little bit different than what our stereotype is. There was coal mines, but wasn't it your Papa, who earned the equivalent of $1 million? I mean, he had money, right?
Yes, he did. Yes. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and so the disparity of, it wasn't like you were initially looking for food and barefoot and not able to go to school. I mean, you really did have a childhood where there was a lot of neglect. And that neglect was as insidious as if you had been physically abused.
Thank you for acknowledging that. Sure.
So continue. When did you first start noticing that you were escaping from the absolute abuse of your parents fighting, and how did you escape? Because in the book you talk about the things you learned from Hazelden, wasn't it?
Yes.
You played what role in your family, especially as the middle child?
I was the lost child as the kid. I was the lost child. I was invisible. I was in my room most of the time, but I yearned for attention and I yearned for love. And then I became the scapegoat when I became a teenager and started acting out sexually and started acting out with drugs and alcohol, running away from home, not coming home, just you name it, I think I did it, becoming a pregnant teen at 16 years old. And that lasted through my early 20s. I was definitely scapegoated, I think, in my family, like, God, Kim, she's such a problem. We don't know what to do with her. And, so that helped others in the family not look at their own problems or issues. But, for me, when did I first learn that I was escaping? I don't know that I really knew that or gained that insight, Carol, until I got into sobriety, to be honest. And that was when I was 26 years old. But looking back on it, I think my first escape was Barbie dolls and playing with the Barbie doll. I was in my room all the time because I did not want to go out and cause my mother any more distraction or anxiety or cause her any kind of emotional distress that she was already going through. So I knew how to keep to myself, basically. I learned at a very early age to self-regulate, but my self-regulation was completely shut down. But I really escaped through my Barbies. I had these fantasy worlds.
That's exactly right, Kim. I was going to say, so much sex addiction and love addiction is fantasy. And you practiced fantasy early on in your childhood. You became an expert in that to keep you company and to avoid not knowing what to do as a child. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. To keep me company. That's such a great point, Carol, because that is exactly what it was doing. It was keeping me company. I couldn't wait to play Barbies at the school day. So, and then I think my second escape was in middle school with boys. When I started getting boys' attention, that fed that fantasy that I had been mimicking with the Barbies. I felt important for the first time in my whole life. I felt beautiful. I felt seen.
I understand that. Okay, so you said you believe that ultimately the beginning of recovery was when you began to identify the trauma and its effects on you. So tell us a little bit about that.
I had acted out against my mother and my anger towards my mother through my high school years. That was very overt, and I was vocal about it. But once I got into recovery, I was able to also see the other parts of it, which is my dad, and him being avoidant. And yes, my mother was abusive, but she was also very sick, and she was struggling herself with mental illness. Now, I didn't gain that compassion for her right away, and I don't want you to think that I did, but, opening the eyes in that treatment center of like, oh, wow, my family isn't perfect. We would always laugh in college, my sister and I, about our family was kind of like the show Dallas back, remember the show Dallas back in the 80s? It was just all this drama all the time, and it really was like that. But growing up as a child like that, I didn't realize that was trauma. I thought it was fascinating, or I thought we were just lucky. We were lucky to have everything we had, and my grandfather and my dad and mom, everybody's very humble to this day. I mean, you would never know that anyone had a dime, and very humble people. So it's not like, but inside the home and inside the system, the family system, you felt very lucky to be, what we had and what we, even if you cried about what had happened, it was, yeah, but look what all you have. Look what all we give you. Look what all we do for you. Whereas that's so true, and I'm so grateful for everything. You know, I wouldn't have been able to go to such a great treatment center had it not been for them, but to also, like, yes, and, not but, and, you know, yes, I'm grateful and lucky, and at the same time I experienced a lot of emotional distress.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that word distress, I mean, part of our strength comes from identifying it, moving forward from it, but still surrendering to it because it becomes a part of us. And, you know, I believe you said that it was in the treatment center that you really began to look at family of origin issues and identify both your role, but also the strength that came out of that.
Mm-hmm.
So then, did you immediately get sober when you came out of one of the best treatment centers in the world?
I sure didn't.
I knew that. I've read the book. So tell us about that journey. You were passionate about it, and you got so much from it. However,
I got so much education from it, but I still had a real addiction, Carol. It was a fierce addiction. And I think my own ignorance of thinking I could just go away for 30 days I think I was there for 6 weeks and come home back to normal was absolutely preposterous, because as soon as I get back home, get back into my car even, I mean, it's a flood of triggers, memories, romanticizing, glorifying all those, all the using again. So, plus, I had not addressed at all my sex and love addiction. So, you know, it was immediately boyfriend, you know, even if it wasn't a boyfriend, it was someone who I could latch onto and have in my fantasy kind of. It was just more of an attachment than a boyfriend. It was so, yes, I relapsed very soon after I got out of Hazelden, and then I was on a 6-month journey of going even further down a spiral of misery and drugs and alcohol and sex addiction.
Mm-hmm. And so, since you didn't bring it up in Hazelden and it wasn't addressed, and that would have been what year that you went to Hazelden?
2003.
Yeah. I mean, really, sex addiction became public in 86, but it did not hit the mainstream media until the early 2000s. So that was your avoidance still, that then also wrapped itself around using everything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I even remember the CSAT on staff at that treatment center then. Of course, I had 2 or 3, like, treatment boyfriends. That was just the way. And he called one of them a predator because he was talking to me. And instead of addressing me, I was never addressed about it. I was just told, you need to stay away from him, and he's more of the predator. And I thought, that's not right. I mean, I don't want to take away any of the, definitely there are predators out there, don't get me wrong, but I was very much in my own sickness as well. But it was more of a male, it was just more of a male, it always has been more of a male-dominated field.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Although that is changing rapidly, yes.
I know.
And I say that because obviously we mentioned that Kimberly is a CSAT, and the sex and love addiction community within our organization, our governing body, ITAP, is growing by leaps and bounds. But it's not until people like Kim come out with her own memoir, her own story, and her own willingness to make public the struggle So continue on. I'm sure our listening audience wonders. You said you became pregnant as a teen. What happened?
Well, just what happened. I got pregnant. Honestly, I never was taught about sex, about anything, about my menstruating cycle, when and if women get pregnant. And of course I'd heard it from friends, but even in their health classes, we were not taught anything about sexual protection or education. So I truly did not know, and this is honest to God, I did not know that your cycle, when you're ovulating, you can get pregnant. I did not know what week that was, what time of the month that was, and to watch out for that. I did not know. Plus, I'm a kid who is dating an older boy who he owns and rules my life, basically, so to speak. I would have literally died for that boy, and he did not like to use condoms. So guess what? That was okay with me, because he didn't like. I wanted to please him, so I'm going to be the girl that's okay with. Mm-hmm. And so for that reason, I absolutely got pregnant at 16 and hid that pregnancy for 5 months, at least 5 months. I found out in January, and at the end of May was when I started hemorrhaging. And I hid it, and I know I said in the book I would have rather died than to tell my mom. Even the night that the doctor told me, I don't think you'll live longer than 24 hours if you don't tell your mother this and get help. Because the doctor couldn't do anything. I was 16. I was under 18. Mm-hmm. So, but still, I still would have rather died than to tell my parents. And that's just so sad to me as a 16-year-old kid to think that you're that trapped.
Mm-hmm. And so obviously you're living with anger and confusion about your parents and their fighting and your father's avoidance, and then men became your drug because they made you feel beautiful and loved, and you could continue with your fantasy. And then you get pregnant and you hide it again. You hide what's going on with you to the point of near death. And that trauma of that experience fed your addictions.
For sure.
And did you deal with that in Hazleton?
No.
That's what I figured. We have come so far, and we've got a lot more to go. But it was amazing that you went to Hazleton at the age that you did in, the early 2000s. And it's like you were one step ahead, but I don't think our field had caught up with you yet.
Well, you know what? You may be right. That's a great point. I was one step ahead, but also one step behind. So yes, exactly. Maybe our field hadn't caught up. Maybe I just wasn't ready yet, to even look at that. But to be completely honest, I did not grieve that fully until I wrote this book, Carol.
I believe that, and I believe that your inner child, as well as your unconscious, knew that you were going to have to grieve it if you wrote about it. And that was part of the angst you felt, besides the coming out from something that for our culture, appears shameful. Sex is shameful any which way you look at it. And it still is, even though we certainly see an overabundance of sexuality in this culture that perpetuates degradation of one's body and spirit and soul. So then, okay, what I heard you say is what Patrick Carnes tells us. You get out of treatment, You go back to your old ways, only you almost go deeper into your old ways. And that's what Pat Carnes says, the father of sex addiction. He says, when you stop and then you relapse, you go back to where you were, only worse. So how long did that journey last? What was it like, and how did you make it out alive?
That relapse? Is that what you're talking? Yeah. How long did it last? It was 6 months long. And what was it like? It started with drinking only, and very quickly. It was just so amazing how quickly it began being drinking in the morning. And I would take shots of Jägermeister. I remember. I don't even know why I liked that. That was my liquor of choice, I guess. So I would freezer and I would take shots. Actually, I didn't even live. A lot of the time, I didn't live in a home or an apartment. I lived in like hotels and extended stay places. So because I was down here now, so I didn't have the comfort of going back to Mom's house when I didn't have anywhere to go. Or I was down here in South Florida, so I was kicked out of halfway houses, and so living in these extended stay hotels and out of my car and drinking Jägermeister from the time I woke up till the time I would pass out. I mean, of course, by 5 o'clock it starts getting, now I'm drinking drinks and not just little shots to keep me soothed throughout the day. But unemployable. I was unemployable. I didn't do anything throughout the day. I literally just ran the streets throughout the day of getting drugs and drinking. And so the drinking quickly then went back to my drug of choice, which then went to heroin. As well, my drug of choice was Oxycontin and cocaine, and it went to heroin and crack quickly. When you're on the streets, that's just how it goes. And, you know, as awful as that got and looked, the emotional pain was 10 times deeper than even the physical look or the pain of it all. But, you know, how did it end was I met a guy in a bar and went home with him and just didn't have, obviously I lived in hotels, so I didn't have a home, so I became his living girlfriend right away, and within a month I was pregnant again, and I said, you know, I'm going to go to detox and get off drugs so that I can have this baby. And so I did, and I thought, you know, and it was like almost like such a childlike mind, like an infantile place in my little soul, as I truly thought that I would just get clean and be this guy's girlfriend, and we would have a baby together, you know.
You're playing house. You thought you could play house.
Yeah, playing house in a trailer in the middle of, like, the hood, you know. I mean, it wasn't even a pretty house. It was just like, but it was the emotional, like, be with me, want me, love me, was such the infantile place. So when I did that, I went to detox, come out of detox, went back home, and he said, I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm not going to be with you. When I tell you that emotional devastation right there was like, not only was I vulnerable and pregnant, but I was alone and not loved.
Yeah, rejected.
Rejected. That was the hell that I needed to experience so that I would get clean once and for all. So I went to treatment for the last time just because I was in so much pain, I didn't know what else to do. I was going to kill myself. So, you know, I took a bottle of Tylenol PM, but that didn't work. It didn't work, but I was able to get myself back into treatment.
And again, you were lucky enough to know how to do that.
Yeah.
And have resources to do that to some degree.
girls like me die, Carol. I mean, so many girls like me die of, either the drug overdose, and today it's the fentanyl, which is hideous, or just getting caught up in a traffic system or something. I mean, seriously, it was just, I was lucky enough, and I'll get emotional when I say this, and that's why I truly look back on my story, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that God brought me through that, so that I can be a voice for other girls like me, so that I can help other girls like me. And so it's like, did I have a choice to write this book? Sure, but I had such a force pushing me, a spiritual force pushing me, like, you have to do this. So to unleash and unchain all those chains, basically, of shame, I had to do that to get through this piece, because how shameful is all of this story. But yes, I was so lucky with the resources. I did still have insurance, thank goodness. Somehow, some way, through my dad had me on insurance. So, I was still able to go to treatment. But again, some people are not that lucky.
And yet I want to say to our listening audience that there are resources available. If you can't find those, then you need to reach out to organizations like ICAP, and you can find them at sexhelp.com, and they will work with you to find people who will figure it out with you. One of the most powerful things about this book is that you give the reader steps to recovery, and it can start from a book. It really can. It can be the motivating factor, both because of the association to your own personal trauma, but also Kimberly makes it so easy to recognize her pain, your pain, and find the hope and the healing and the self-forgiveness that gives you motivation to seek those other resources out. So I got to tell you, your book is powerful. And I want to remind everybody, the book is called I Do It For Her, a memoir of recovery and redemption from sex, love, and substances. So at what age did you finally get sober from it all?
From it all. Oh, goodness. I think it was 2015.
Right.
And I want to state that recovery from sex and love addiction is not as linear as it is with alcohol and drugs. And what I mean by that, with alcohol and drugs, we can put it down, and I am abstinent. I've been abstinent since May 19th of 2004 from all drugs and substances and alcohol. But with sex and love in 2015 was when I came to the aha of, like, I have to stop. I have to stop this sick pattern. And, I want to say about August of 2015 is when I really made like a declaration to myself that I'm going to work on this and do this. Have I been sexually active since then? Absolutely. But have I been working on my recovery? And I made an oath at that time to not have casual sex. So, sex from 2015 on has looked like within the confines of a relationship. It hasn't looked like casual or stranger, sex with strangers anymore. So did I then have to walk through? I feel like then it was like my sex addiction in 2015, but now, then that brought on a lot of love addiction characteristics, because then I wanted to date and I wanted to get into a relationship so I could have sex real quick, So that was a big learning curve for me too, was walking through that. I got my CSAT in 2017 because I was so fascinated with the physiological hold that the sex and love had over my body, my mind, my spirit, that I had to get to know how to heal this. Not just, I was working with a therapist, but I had to get to know, like, the bottom of this. Like, the clinician in me really wanted to get the real nitty-gritty and the pieces of it. So I would say, gosh, Carol, I mean, probably I feel recovery is such a journey, such a walking through of unveiling different layers of everything. So I called 2015, in recovery from sex, and then, of course, I worked on dating and love addiction.
Yeah, because really in love and sex and love addiction, you're really supposed to abstain from any relationships for at least a year so that you can really learn to love yourself.
Yes.
And then you have to decide, am I still too vulnerable to begin the process of being with other people and not being super glued to them, right?
Exactly. Yes. So I went, I think for those first 2 years, I went totally like no sex for 2 years. It was 2 years for me, and I was terrified. But then when I did start dating, it became the same, very anxiously attached to people, the same wanting to control. So for me, it looked like almost like sexual anorexia at first because of the fear of going back into the pain and the shame. But then when I did start dating, I was still trying to control aspects of it. So listen, learning to love myself, I feel like we still are learning to love ourselves each and every day. But, I remember telling my sister just the other day, I was like, I've never felt better about myself. Like, and not in a cocky or any kind of other way, but just a freedom type of feeling, So I think it's just an ongoing, ever-evolving type of thing, but I truly believe once I did start dating in recovery from sex and love addiction, I feel like I was really free from it all.
Yeah, I want to say that in reading the book, you said there are many layers to recovery, and so you became clean from drugs and alcohol, which helped you to make better decisions, but not from sex. And then you did a deep dive into sex and love addiction, and in 2015, you made a choice to really focus in on that recovery. And you had 2 years of staying away from the trigger, which was sex and relationships, as you got to know yourself. 2017, you started your CSAT journey, not totally being in recovery, but for you, it was part of your recovery to understand the physiological and psychological needs to work through all the pain you had experienced and the shame, the drama, and then that process takes a person anywhere from 1 to 2 years. I really should say anywhere from 1 to 5 years. It usually is 2 years to get your CSAT, your clinical certified sex addiction therapy. And for you, it was how long?
I think it was about 16 months.
Okay.
18 months, something like that. But that was in the days where, it wasn't online. It was, you traveled.
I know. I love that. It's a lot of extra work and money, but I love that.
Me too.
And then, so now that was 2017 that you 16 and a half that you completed that. And then when did you start that next layer with the book? I mean, because a book, I'm on my 5th, it takes a long time. When did you start to write your book?
I knew I had a story to tell around 2014. before this. And the story that I was thinking at the time was more about my drug and alcohol addiction, recovery, and going through a divorce and blah, 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 blah. But as it evolved, of course, I did start writing in 2014, very, very sporadically and not anything structured or anything like that. When COVID happened was when I got serious. I said, there's no time like now. And again, I really did have a powerful presence of, and I do call my higher power God, I feel like he was pushing me to do this. Every time I would want clarity about something, about my work or about a relationship, all I would really hear was write this book. So in 2020, I got very serious and hired a writing coach. Mm-hmm. And contacted Sono Press, who we share the same publisher. Yeah.
I was their first book ever published, other than Darren, the president of Sono Press.
Mm-hmm. Oh, awesome. So I contacted them. He said, yes, you have a book. I sent him the very few, I think I may have had 17 pages, of just raw. And he said, yes, write it, and we'll be happy to publish it. I did do the writing coach. I ended up hiring Mari Lee, who graciously held my little hand through this.
And she does. That's her job with people, as she is a encouragement coach all the way, and she's got the precision and the administrative skills to make anything happen for people.
And I needed that because I have a fair amount of ADD.
Uh-huh.
And, I needed her structure, I needed her boundaries, and I needed her push because I would have, we say lollygag in the South. Mm-hmm. I would have lollygagged and not written the book. So 2020 I started and, stopped and started a lot of times because of the shame and because of the apprehension of still feeling that, I can't do this to my family. I can't do this to my parents. And then, just really, the more I wrote, though, the stronger I got and the less hold that shame had on me. It meant nothing. Mm-hmm. It's just like a insane power now and freedom that, like, it really means nothing to me that my past. I mean, it means something for sure, but the shame part of it doesn't embarrass me as much as it was just so embarrassing.
So we have a minute left. And first of all, I want to tell our listeners that if you're resonating with Kimberly Linton, who wrote I Do It For Her, a memoir of recovery and rejection from sex, love, and substances, know that you, too, need to find that inner quiet to be guided by your higher power to get over there to post-traumatic growth. And maybe to do that means that you have to write a play, a script, a book, poems, do a video. There are just so many ways that you can begin to help others as you help yourself. And so, Kimberly, what would you tell our listening audience to inspire them?
That's a great question. Well, I hope my book inspires you. I hope that my perseverance inspires you. I hope that you know that you can do it. No matter what, as long as you don't go back into the addiction, you're going to grow. Even if you're just stagnant, you're going to grow because life just ends up that way. I mean, it forces you to grow. So to inspire others, the sky's the limit. I feel like, there's a freedom in recovery that is like no other. Mm-hmm. And you have no idea how small you have played yourself your whole life until you get into recovery and you start feeling that freedom. And it's not in it's not in an ego way. It's in a real spiritual freedom of just, you know, and what do I want to say to inspire others? Dig, like, want to be inspired, be curious, you know, be very curious, like finding things for inspiration. Mm-hmm. That's another thing with my book. I would dig into things to give me inspiration to help me write, mm-hmm. you know, because I couldn't just do it sometimes on my own volition. So, yeah. I just wish everybody the best of luck, and thank you so, so much, Carol, for having me on here, and thank you all for, like, listening and just even giving me the time of day, and I just appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome, and on my wall I have Marianne Williamson's quote, and she says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It's not our light. It's our darkness that most frightens us. So if you're inspired, please read her book. She gives you steps to mm-hmm. recover and to find that knowing that you too have something to give back in some small way. It may not be in this field. It may be somewhere else, someplace else. But as I end the show, I always say, there will only be one of you at all times. So fearlessly have the courage to be yourself. And Kimberly Litton, it was a joy and a pleasure to talk to you today.
You too, Carol. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we'll say goodbye to you and see you for another episode of Sex Help with Carol the Coach. Make it a good one.
Record.